he was going to become a doctor. We reconnected 3 years ago, and he's a medical doctor right now. We went out and eat. He has a private metabolic practice just here in Bellevue. He understands chiropractic. He loves chiropractic. But then after I start to have this study group idea, I reach out to him and say, hey, Clement, we got this study group idea setting up, and just a bunch of different doctors and health practitioners come over here and share ideas on health and just chat. And he said, well, are you getting paid for doing this? I'm like, no, right? It's just a community. He's like, why would you want to have anything to do with health or medicine after work? I'm like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right? But the reason I share this story is later on I think about it. It's not like Dr. Clement doesn't care, but in his community, nothing you learn can be applied to practice after just one day, right? Everything have to wait for researchers, validation, the system to change, insurance code. So nothing they learn is usable. You'll be something like a pet project. They can't use it at all. That's how they think. Because drugs you need to use it carefully. So it's just very lucky for us that anytime we talk to another fellow practitioners, we can use it right away. We learn something cool, we can apply it and just see changes, right? I think that's what makes our community more positive and more supportive. And that's why we're here doing this. So today's topic is going to be on bone health. Okay, bone is kind of like the foundation of everything, right? We're going to talk about the role of bone in health. We're going to talk about formation of bone, and we're going to talk about stress on bone. First, role of bones. Bone does many things, right? Essentially, how when we're moving all the muscles, we're moving the bones in space, right? So it guides the framework of movement. It's a mineral reservoir, so it stores minerals like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and when the body needs it, it takes it out from the bone. Also, it's managing blood cell production. So bone marrow, any kind of disease on bone will cause disease in blood, right? And a lot of people forget that bone itself is also an endocrine organ. It actually produces osteocalcin, that it's a hormone that directly interact with your brain, affect your blood sugar, affect your energy, and affect your hormones. And lastly, we all know it's a very important thing for calcium homeostasis. It controls the calcium level in the body. So bone health, there's a cohort study that took 30,000 men over 70s, and over half of them have osteopenia. Half of them. And women over age 50 have twice higher risk of developing bone mass loss than men. So this is almost like something you will see in today's population. It's a thing that's happening, and people don't know why it's happening. People think it's aging. Even though we see people in their 80s have healthy bones, in their 90s they have healthy bones, a lot of people think it's aging, right? So it's something we can help with. But first, we want to understand the formation of bones. Because bone is a living tissue, right? The bones you have right now today are not the bones you had 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, not the bones you had maybe a year ago. Because bones are constantly being broken down and rebuilt every single day, right? There's cells called osteoblasts for building the bone and osteoclasts for breaking down the bone. So it's healing every single day. Sometimes a patient gets a stress fracture, leave them there and it gets healed, right? And even the medical community understand that. All the surgical instruments help to keep the bone together, but the healing is coming up from the bone itself, right? What helps the bone to grow, right? Wolff's Law. Healthy bone adapts to the physical load placed upon them. So when you place stress on the object, it induces growth. Asian parents understand that. Put a lot of stress on kids. So anything like walking or running, when you put loads on your bone, or you do any basic weightlifting, like we require all of our patients after 50 to do some kind of weight-bearing exercises, 3 pound, 5 pound, doesn't matter. The type doesn't matter. It can be calisthenic, it can be air squat, anything, because that helps the bone to keep growing and keep healing. Bone composition, right? 65% of them are minerals. And then 25% actually protein and collagen. Okay, so it's not just all calcium. And 10% is water. So if you think about it, these are the different, micronutrient deficiency will cause the bone to become. So if you have a bone have high mineral content, but don't have the protein matrix, you'll become hard and brittle. This usually happens a lot at vegetarian patients. Right? They're having a lot of vegetables, variety of vitamins, but no protein, lack of protein. You have the soft bones, which is the opposite, that you don't have enough minerals, but you have a lot of protein. This is more rare, and usually I would say in practice, I see a lot of patients have hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, then their bones are just softer, harder for them to do weight-bearing exercises. They're hypermobile, their joints overextend, right? And the healthy bone is like that. When you have good amount of collagen that form those scaffold or spider web structure, hold the minerals inside. So it's elastic, bendable, but it's strong and resilient. So let's first talk about all the building blocks that build the bone, right? So first one is protein. Majority of bone tissue is collagen protein. And that we talk about, it's flexible, web-like structure that hold the mineral in the bone structure. And if we just talk about 100 grams of protein, like we heard many different rules on how many pounds equals how many grams, but most of the people are protein deficient in today's world. That's what 27 grams of protein looks like, right? If you say 100, a lot of vegetarians will say, I eat edamame, it's high in protein. Well, that's right, but you have to eat 10 plates of that to get 100 grams. Second ingredient will be vitamin C. And the reason for vitamin C is because it binds collagen together, so it's stronger. And what is made out of collagen, right? We have muscle, we have bones, we get blood vessels, and all the connective tissue that's built from collagen. Do any of you guys know what is the highest vitamin C storage content organ in our body? What organ stores the highest amount of vitamin C?
Adrenals.
Adrenals. Yes.
Who said that?
Ryan.
Oh, wow.
Ryan, we cheated.
you.
He's a rep.
Learning stuff.
So it's adrenal gland. Adrenal gland use up a lot of vitamin C as fuels, right? So if you don't have enough vitamin C or your adrenal is overdriving, right? That's why collagen start to break down. That's why people start to lose bone mass, muscle mass, and connective tissue strength. Right? So any hypermobility patient, you check for adrenal function. Also scurvy, right? We learned that in school. When you have vitamin C deficiency, you get scurvy. But usually in this country, not too many people who have scurvy, right? But the whole idea is that the blood vessel integrity get damaged and they start to bleed. And of course, if we talk about bone, we talk about vitamin D. Vitamin D helps your body absorb calcium, increase calcium absorbance. So if you have a low vitamin D in your body, which most people are, especially in the States, you're going to have poor calcium absorption. That is going to trigger your hypothyroid to kick in and demand more calcium in the blood. So it will start to draw calcium out from your bone to replenish the calcium in your blood. And that's what's causing osteoporosis or osteopenia, right? Because your bone keep getting drawn out of calcium when the body needs more. Lastly, the mineral bank. Bone stores calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Right? So we all understand how important those are. Calcium for any muscle contraction, nerve signal transmission, and it can be bone and teeth formation. Magnesium is for muscle relaxation, right? Bowel movements, heart rhythm, or blood pressure and glucose metabolism. Lastly, phosphorus. Phosphorus is important because all your ATP in your body, the P is the phosphorus, all the energy cell requires phosphorus. Right, so if your body needs more calcium, more magnesium, more phosphorus, because your patient is not getting the right nutrient, it's all going to be taken up from the bones. Right, so just understand that bones are constantly taking a hit for us on our daily life. People are not getting enough weight-bearing exercises. People are not eating enough protein. People probably get some vitamin C, right? But their adrenals fatigued. Vitamin D, not enough in this state. And then the mineral part, right? So just know that bone health takes decades to deteriorate. So it's usually not the first thing we pay attention to. But if you look at what it takes for bone to be healthy, you can almost predict most people in this country are going to have some bone issues when they grow older, right? 60s, 70s, 80s. And we can prevent that, but also we can heal that. We can help that to heal. Last part, we're going to talk about stress on bone. So a lot of people think only physical trauma, fracture, you don't need to worry about bone. Other than that, you don't need to, it's not important. But that's not true. So if you talk about the stress triad, structural, chemical, and emotional, we got 3 different kinds of stress, right? Chemical stress can be micro or macro nutrition deficient. Minerals, macros, proteins, even fat, some people carb. We got hormone altering additives, right? Red dye, yellow dye, or any MSGs. And we have an increasing chemical and drug usage issue, especially in teenagers. I'm not talking about illegal drugs. I'm talking about ibuprofen. I'm talking about hormone replace birth therapy, birth control pills. Those are very common in this country for teenagers to be taking, right? So all of those create stress on the body. Structural stress, either over or under exercising. Poor recovery from trauma. A lot of people in this country don't seek for help after a trauma. Simple ankle sprain, simple shoulder, right? Pull their shoulder, they just wait, right? And it create a long-term body adaptation. Absence of walking culture. Yes. So 2 years ago, I went to Europe. Daily walk, 15,000 steps. This year, we went to Korea. Daily walk, 20,000 steps. When I was in the clinic, 3,000 steps. I drive to the clinic, I drive back. Right? If I have my phone in my pocket, probably 5,000 because I walk around the table. Right? So absence of walking culture in this country, big issue. Right? Lastly is gravity. Human comes out as a ball, and we go as a ball. Right? Gravity is constantly pulling us down, and that's why people get, right, different compression issues, compression fracture from just doing nothing. Right, because the bone structure is getting more weak, and then gravity can break them. But you don't need to have a car accident to break the bone, right? You can just stand there. That's what stress fractures are. Lastly, it's all the emotional stress. Big T's, little t's, financial stress, relationship, cultural, political. This list goes on. And these are everyday stress. So why are we talking about stress, right? Because these are not just affecting the chemical part, our digestive system, structural system, or emotions. How stress affects our body is whenever there's a stressor, our body only responds in one way. Our hypothalamus detects the stress from all the sensory input, and then our hypothalamus communicate with the pituitary gland, communicate with the adrenal gland, which release cortisol. And cortisol is a stress coping hormone. It's a stress hormone. What does cortisol do? First, it decreases your vitamin D receptor sensitivity. That will result in decreased calcium absorption, which will result in blood calcium level drop. We talk about that. And then parathyroid kicks in, start to take out calcium from the bone to replenish the blood. And then you get loss of bone. And then you lose body structure, which makes you more prone to trauma and injury. And it goes back to the whole stress cycle. So the thing we need to understand about this is the daily stuff. right? So this make osteoporosis, osteopenia, any kind of bone loss issue not a mystery. It just happens. And human beings, we're going to have that. But with good supplementation, with good exercising, we can delay that. And unfortunately, as age goes on, your patient will need more support. Right? Age over 50, they need some hypochloric acid support. They need some iron. After 60 and 70, they're going to need a little bit more. After 80, they need to start taking calcium, fish oil. It's necessary, right? Because that's how our body degrades. Now we're going to talk about different supplementation, right? So bone, I think it's interesting because do you guys have a lot of patients come in with bone complaint? They come in and say, I want to work on my osteoporosis. Not really, right? Not really, right? And also if you...
Only if it's already diagnosed or...
Already diagnosed, right? But if you... Yeah, but if you take good care of them, they usually don't have this issue. You detect vitamin D drop way ahead before osteoporosis starts to develop. You detect calcium drop before it happens. But if it does happen, if something comes in and say, hey, my uncle told me that you help with osteoporosis and I have it, I want to start working on that, we got different protocol options. The first one is the protocol from Mark Anderson. So pretty much he used Calci Food, Calmaplex, Cataplex C, and Ostrophin PMG. Calci Food is just veal bone. So you got the high vitamin C content. Ostrophin PMG, all the PMG product are the blueprint for the organ. So it just helps the bone to heal. And the Calmaplex is a very interesting one because that is the one he used to support parathyroid, which is a good combo when you're taking care of vitamin D, calcium, and parathyroid gland. Okay. The second one is Standard Process Bone Health Pack. Actually pretty similar. Both got the Calci Food because of the veal bone. Bone Health Pack also adding a Cataplex D, that's D vitamin support. Ostrophin PMG, that's the same. But the Bone Health Pack adding the Crucifix Complete. And I don't use the Bone Health Pack that often, but the Crucifix, it's interesting. Other than the fact that it provides high contents of vitamin C and minerals, right, from those vegetables, Crucifix Complete is also used to help with xenoestrogen metabolism, right? Help with getting out the extra estrogen in the body. Estrogen have high correlation with bone health. That's why women have more osteoporosis issue because all of your hormones affect the bone, right? And all of the stress affect the hormone more, which then affect the bone more, right? So that's kind of the connection there. How we usually deal with it, we usually have all of our patients start with the HPA axis support. So make sure they have some bandwidth and some resilience to cope with stress better. And either we do Drinamine and B-Core, or we do like Synflex FNM with hypothalamus. And then we add in vitamin D and K together. That's one of the formula we formulate ourselves. And we tell everyone over 50 to do weight-bearing exercises. And definitely if you look at Standard Process Bone Pack or Bone Complex, or even Mark Anderson will say, you need to have the patient do weight-bearing exercises because they can't just supplement their way out of it and not move. Right. So, and the interesting perspective, cultural differences is that I talk about Asians putting a lot of stress on kids, but when Asian grows old, they kind of don't want to move, right? And it's kind of a culture to respect the elders, bring them teas. A lot of them just can't move because they're just not moving, right? That happened to my grandma. So it's kind of opposite. And here, kids have a lot of free time, free expression. When people get older, they start to work out. And the Asian, opposite. Okay, different ways. But yeah, that will be all for today.